Welcome to the CLAWS YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to IIRF CLAWS weekly live podcast. IIRF CLAWS weekly live podcast is a collaborative venture of two leading independent Indian think tanks, that is India's International Research Foundation and the Center for Land Warfare Studies. So in this weekly podcast, we bring live insightful discourses and discussions on international relations, geopolitics, and important national and international issues. On our joint platform, we bring you eminent high-profile professionals and personalities with hands-on experience on the topics of our discussion. And ladies and gentlemen, the topic of our discussion is Maldives. Under this topic, during our discourse today, we will try to dispel many doubts and negative connotations that has cropped up in the Indo-Maldivian relations recently. Since the topic today is a bit sensitive in nature, at least as far as it relates to India-Maldives ties, I request my viewers to keep your questions and queries very decent, nuanced, and on a positive note. No, because despite certain difficulties in Indo-Maldivian ties, India being a very mature civilizational state, ladies and gentlemen, in Indian foreign policy calculus, India always values a friendly relationship with all its neighbors, including Maldives. Through this podcast, I would like to convey all our neighbors that every mature Indian have full respect for our neighbors' sovereignty, territorial integrity, and always appreciates our neighbors' unique culture and history of their own. Now, before I give you a brief introduction to the topic today, let me also give you a brief introduction to our esteemed guest speakers. So our first guest speaker today is Mr. Sunil Pant. And Mr. Sunil Pant is a former Chief General Manager, overseas expansion of SBI. Currently, he is an independent director of the board of Ghaznafar Bank, Kabul, and a member of the Banking and Financial Committee of the Afghan American Chamber of Commerce. Apart from this, he is an independent director with 3 companies of the Green Infra Group. He had been the CEO of the Indian Institute of Insolvency and Professional of ICAI, almost from its inception in 2017 till August 2020, and was the first CEO of Cybersecurity Integration India Limited. As head of overseas expansion of SBI, he had acquired banks in Mauritius and Indonesia. He had established a joint venture in bank in Moscow, a subsidiary in Botswana, Indonesia, established a joint venture bank in Moscow, banking alliances in GCC. He was the credit head of Sri Lanka and later served on the board of Nepal, SBI Bank Limited, and Bank of Bhutan. He established offices in China, Australia, UK, Singapore, Oman, Turkey, Maldives, and Dubai, and Bangladesh, etc. Today, we have invited him to share his first-hand experience of Maldives when he spent considerable time. He used to visit very frequently Maldives to develop the market for the SBI. Now, our second esteemed guest speaker is also an eminent banker. I do not know, sir, you are a banker or you are an audit? So, because you are in banking, that's why I'm calling you banker.
Yes, I'm out and out banker.
So we are very fortunate to have another eminent banker in Mr. Biswajit Mazumder, who is currently serving in Maldives as the Chief Internal Auditor of the Bank of Maldives. Now, Mr. Biswajit Mazumder has over 35 years of experience in internal audit, business operations, and strategic planning. He has held chief audit position in several banks and was most recently the chief internal auditor for the Ghaznafer Bank of Kabul, when I'm sure, Mr. Pant and you must have worked together. He is a certified internal auditor CIA from the IIA USA and a chartered accountant from ICAI New Delhi, India. He has a LLB from Calcutta University and also holds several relevant professional certificates, including certified information system auditor and certified fraud examiner from USA. Now, some interesting facts about Maldives. Uh, gentlemen, Ladies and gentlemen, Maldives is a very tiny island nation located at a very strategic location, 780 kilometers away from the Kochi airport of India. Though it is a cluster of 1,200 islands, it has only 35,000 square kilometers habitable land and has a population of barely 4 lakh people, of which I understand that nearly 1 lakh are overseas workers. Since it is located right at the center of the Indian Ocean, its location intersects the world's busiest international shipping lane, which gives it a unique strategic importance. Due to proximity, Maldives always had a closer and cordial relation with India. However, in 2014, China's Maritime Silk Road project changed all that. China, under its strategic Silk Road project, offered large scale financial assistance to this tiny island beyond its paying capacity to the tune of US dollar 1.4 billion. That is nearly a third of the total gross domestic product of Maldives. Under the above loan arrangements, Chinese companies undertook the construction of a kilometer-long friendship bridge costing US dollar 210 million. This bridge gave Maldives direct road connectivity to its capital city, Malé, with its international airport located at the island of Hulhule. It is an iconic bridge. I'm sure Mr. Pant may be showing this bridge on his slide. The then President, Mr. Yamin, also awarded a contract for construction of an additional runway for this airport to a Chinese company after taking it away from an Indian firm. Further, Maldives approved a proposal to construct a seaport in the island of Lam, and this contract was again going to China. The country concluded at least 9 agreements with China during this period. Now, President Abdul Yamin was ousted from power by his successor Ibrahim Mohit Soli in a landslide victory in the 2018 elections. The successor government tried to re-evaluate some of the inflated Chinese projects, but his government fell out in the next election, bringing again a pro-China president, Mr. Moizu, through his Out India campaign. This new government of Mr. Moizu adopted many anti-India policies detrimental to Indian commercial and strategic interests. But Indian government handled these aberrations in Indo-Maldives relation with remarkable sophistication and patience. It is interesting to note that within few years in governance, Moizu government has realized that Maldives in India close integrated economic relations is organic and symbiotic in nature, and severing its economic ties with India is not only difficult but utterly harmful to Maldivian economy. Now, Indian policies towards Maldives is foundationally benign and friendly in nature, and at times of crisis, uh, whether it is economic or natural disaster, India is the first responder in this area to bail out our neighbors. Bailing out and offsetting the balance of payment crisis of Maldives and Sri Lanka recently are the cases in point. As a result, Indo-Maldives relation has improved through constructive diplomacy, and things have once again started looking up between the two historically close neighbors. Now, I will invite Mr. Sunil Pant to elaborate the points brought out above through his first-hand experience in dealing with Maldives financial sector. The total time available for us, gentlemen, in this podcast is around 45 minutes to 1 hour, including tackling the questions from the audiences. So we will keep that in mind in our discourse. Mr. Pant, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Group Captain. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be a part of this deliberation, this discussion. And I really thank the august audience for having given me this opportunity to join with you and express my views about what I think is the conundrum, the situation, the evolution of Maldives as a very critical player in the geopolitical arena of the neighborhood. Now, we all know that Maldives by itself is a tiny island chain. It's a very tiny island chain, and it's part of a chain that stretches for a long distance across the Indian Ocean. It is at a very critical point where you have the 8 degree and the 9 degree channels, and those are very important channels in terms of, again, the geopolitical importance emerging from them because of the fact that a huge amount of trade flows through those channels. About 80% of India's oil trade and shipping comes in through those channels, and similarly there is a huge amount of oil that flows, energy that flows to China through these areas, and therefore it is of critical interest to both India and China to be able to manage and handle the relationship that both these countries have with Maldives. So if we can go to the first slide, I'll just run you through a couple of very standard statements so that you'll have an idea about the background to it all. And as we said, as I was mentioning, there is this 9 degree channel and the 8 degree channel. The 8 degree channel is slightly more important because that is where more of China's energy needs are sent through. And one must remember that when we are talking about the Indian Ocean stretch here, and particularly from the perspective of China, we are looking at two choke points that are there in their flow of energy. One is the Hormuz Straits, which are not shown here, but which many of you would be aware of, are bordering close to the Red Sea. And the next is the Straits of Malacca. So both these points become very critical as far as China is concerned, and therefore their obvious interest in having a stable relationship, if not an influential relationship, with a country like the Maldives. Now that is where Maldives becomes very important for China, but it also becomes important for us because it is very close to our borders. It is just across the sea, you can say, from Minicoy, which is part of our archipelago, the Laccadive and Minicoy areas, the Lakshadweep, which we call them. And therefore, it is a very, very critical area that we have to be looking at. And it's an area that is right in our neighborhood, which we have to be very careful about. There have been instances in the past, and you would have seen that in the newspaper reports, where Chinese ships have come there, have been hovering around that area, sometimes officially, sometimes unofficially, but they have been sort of listening into what is happening in India. They've got powerful equipment which can eavesdrop on our electronic conversation, and that is something that worries most of the Indians. The other factor also is that Maldives by itself also provides a stretch of islands, most of which are uninhabited, and therefore becomes a potential center for location of terrorists, because people will not know that there are terrorists there. There can be resorts that are taken over. There can be distant remote islands that can give shelter. And that is why this is another area of concern. Now, can we go to the next slide, please? So this is about the basic geography. I will not say much apart from the fact that Maldives is just 359 square kilometer, 359 square kilometers in size. Its land area is barely 298 square kilometers, and it is spread over. Can we go to the next slide, please? it's spread over 26 natural atolls. Atolls are groupings of these islands that are there, which have been divided into 20 for the administrative purposes. So there are 1,192 islands, of which only 199 are inhabited, and the others are uninhabited. And that is another area where people generally have concern. There was a time when the British had leased one island, I think the island of Gan, and they were paying a substantial rent for its use. But with the withdrawal of the British and the shrinking of the empire, they have handed that back. I think there was a lease that they had where they were paying about 4 million pounds sterling to the government of Maldives for the entire lease period they had paid them, which was I think about 20 years or so. But as of now, there is no such arrangement. Now, the capital of Maldives, as many of us who would have traveled to that place would know, is Malé. And again, it's a very crowded location. It's where Mr. Mazumder is presently located. So you can have a look at where he is sitting. And you can imagine that within about, I think, 2 kilometers on either side of him, there would be the sea. Then there are low-lying islands with flat terrain, which are generally the average height above the sea is 1.2 meters. 1.2 meters would essentially be less than 5 feet. So that is something that you have to consider, that this is a very low-lying area, and therefore it is expected, or rather it is feared, that this would be very severely impacted in case of global warming and as the ice caps melt. So there would be maybe a situation where these low atolls or these islands could get flooded, and there would be a huge displacement of population that will need to be taken care of. There is also a fact that there is very little that can grow there. The basic item of agricultural interest, or I should say of interest in the area of fisheries and everything, is just the fish. So the main thing is fish and a little bit of coconut. Can we go to the next slide? So historically, Maldives has been inhabited for about 2,500 years. It's something that has been there a long time, and it has a documented history, not very well documented, but which has been seen in the form of certain artifacts that have come up of a very ancient Hindu and Buddhist influence in that area. There have been copper plates also that have been discovered with more of Buddhist markings on it, less of Hindu markings, because probably at that time the Hindu scripts or whatever was there by way of evidence was on something that was perishable, and therefore it doesn't seem to have been found up to now. But yes, the Buddhist parts of it are visible, and there is a speculation that many of these would have come in on a migratory trend from Sri Lanka. Therefore, Sri Lanka also has a significant influence that it has in the Maldives. There is also another factor that we have to consider is that Maldives, though it became, when known to the Arabs as they started their trade with India, became a halting point for Arab traders that were coming from Arabia, from the Gulf area to India, their dhows. It was also an area where there was some kind of, a resurgence of involvement of the Arabs and of the Islamic interests. So by 947 AD, they were documenting the visits to this place, and there were a number of travelers who had gone through this area, including Ibn Battuta, the famous traveler who came from Arabia and Persia into North India and went back. And he presumably also saw Maldives on the way back. So that is something that has been of interest. And Maldives over time has been evolving. It recorded its independence from the British in 1965, after which it became a presidential republic. And in 1968, it elected a People's Majlis. It has a substantial Muslim population. I would say, in fact, it's 100% Muslim population, and therefore they follow the Islamic law, but they don't have the harder schools of Islamic law. They have a slightly more, shall we say, relaxed school of Islamic law. So that, I suppose, it suits the people better. Maldives is also a founding member of SAARC, which is the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, that is there for most of the South Asian countries. Can we go to the next, please? See, because of its proximity to India and the fact that Indians had some kind of a connection with Maldives, when the European colonists came to India, they were obviously aware of Maldives. It probably transited through the Maldivian archipelago, and therefore they knew what it was, where it was, and therefore it was very natural that they would go back to it and try and acquire interests out there. So we have a situation where they went back, but there is also a very interesting etymology that I found, and which I thought I'd share with you, that the name Maldives may have been derived. It's not something that we've been able to get a record on, but it is presumed to have been derived from the word mala, which is a garland, and dweep, which is an island. So it's a string of islands. It's a necklace of islands that we have. So it became Maladvipa, and therefore it became Maldives. And Maladivina is also in Sinhala. Sinhala is also very akin to Pali and the Indian languages that are in vogue, and therefore, it has a great connection. And similarly, in Tamil, in Malayalam, in Kannada, you will find references to Maldives by way of garlands of islands, and therefore that is a very interesting thing that goes back. And there is another belief that during Vedic periods this was known as the 100,000 islands, that is the Lakshadweep, and therefore the Lakshadweep was essentially the entire chain, which was the Amindivi Islands, the Minicoy, and the Chagos island groups, and that is something that is giving it a historical construct as far as we look at it. Can we go to the next slide, please? So here again, as I was mentioning, there were various names, various influences that came up, including the names given by the Persians. And as I said, when Ibn Battuta was looking at it, he was calling it the Mahal Dibiyat, which was the Mahal being from the word Mahal, palace. So it was the island of the palaces, or rather the palace of the islands, whichever way you look at it. And there was all these other references that were there. And finally, it became the Maldives because of the British anglicizing the names that had been given to it by the Dutch and others. So there it is. And I think that is the history of the name Maldives, and it establishes a very significant connection with the Indian mainland. Can we go to the next? These are Maldives exports. Now, Maldives is a very small nation, but these are the exports. And if you look at it in terms of export destinations, substantial part of the export is to Thailand, which is basically fish, which is basically tuna fish. And others also have a share in it, but largely these are sea-based products. And at one time, they believed that a lot of these cowries, which were used, the cowrie, which was used as currency, also came from there. So the cowries were also from Maldives, and they were at one time supposed to be in great demand, and therefore they were great export items, but obviously no longer so. This is the share that we have. India is the 5th largest export destination for Maldives. Can we go to the next? May we have the next slide, please? Yeah, so these are the main exports. As I said, 57% is fish, and largely fish related and seafood related. Can we go to the next? These are imports, and India has a substantial share of 15.6%, and the others also are there, but China's share has been going up, and so has Singapore's share. Can we go to the next? When I was in Sri Lanka, we were doing trade with the Maldives, and it was essentially supply of your food items, and there were various drinking water bottles and others that were supposed to be sent there because you don't have much of drinking water out there, and there were no drinking water supply. In fact, I think they essentially use a desalination plant for much of their water supply in Malé. Can we go to the next? Yes, this is a copy part of the report that I picked up from the Maldives Monetary Authority. It's a 2024 report, so fairly recent, which says that total volume of trade has risen, but there's a sharp decline in fish exports. And that could be because of a variety of reasons, including the fact that people are becoming less inclined to take the roughness of the sea, and they are more used to the tourists coming in and maybe slightly easier money. So fish exports have gone down. There is also a surge in fuel re-export. With the rising number of tourists that are coming in, larger number of flights that are coming in, there is a re-export of fuel that is happening, which is also adding to their revenue. You must remember that this is a very small economy. So even fueling of aircraft can add to the GDP of the country substantially. Now, Asia accounted for 83% of the imports and 55% of the exports. UAE was a top import source at 20% of total imports, largely because of the petroleum products that were required for the re-export and the reselling. And this has actually increased by 58% in 2024. Imports from China rose by 20%, driven by demand for furniture and electronics. Singapore also saw a 16% rise in import value. I think this reflects more of an improvement in the standard of life and the quality of life. And therefore, people are buying more of these consumption items, of these white goods, to be able to establish a better quality of life. Imports from India, meanwhile, declined by 6%, primarily due to a lower demand for construction material and mechanical appliances. So India was supplying these, but construction has apparently declined, and people are not moving into as many houses. Can we go to the next? Yeah. So here we are looking at something, I mean, with the Prime Minister in China, I thought this could be an interesting area to consider, where China, India, and they seem to be in competition for influence in the Maldives. And sometimes one is getting an upper hand and sometimes the other is getting an upper hand. The Maldivians would obviously want the best that they can under the circumstances they are. And therefore, one doesn't blame them for trying to get the best deal from whoever they can get it. Until recently, there was very little India-China competition in that area. And almost for 4.5 decades, since its independence in 1965, this was basically a backyard for India. But things changed, and if you go back to the previous slide, you will see that after Mr. Gayoom, there have been changes that took place because of the change of the political heads of the state. Can we go back one slide? Okay,
Back.
This is it. Here, basically, as you will see that after Mr. Gayoom, Mr. Mohammad Nasheed came, he was still inclined towards India, but after that, when Mr. Abdullah Yamin came to power, there was a significant Chinese backing that he had, and he moved into the BRI, and he also had a free trade agreement with China, which had an impact upon how India's geopolitical position in this area was being impacted. Similarly, Maldives was borrowing a lot of money to be able to sustain its new growth outlook, and therefore they were into significant debt, at about 1.5 billion against a GDP of less than 9 billion, which was supposed to be slightly unbearable for them. Now, in 2018, following the election of Mr. Soli, the India First policy was initiated and the country pulled out of the trade deal with Beijing. And India also authorized a 1.4 billion level of assistance to Maldives with loan paybacks and provided additional financing support for community development projects. Can we go to the next slide? Now, Maldives' bilateral ties with China swung back after Mr. Mohammad Muizzu came to power and he made his maiden overseas visit to China in January 2024. So that underscored his inclination and his outlook at that time. China's engagement with Maldives has grown significantly since they joined the Belt and Road Initiative in 2014. Now, this is something that has been cutting two ways. A lot of people call it debt trap diplomacy. Some people deny that. Some people say it's the availability that is a factor. So this is something that can be debated. There is also a deepening, there is also a reversal of the pendulum swing now. And as we know, on the 25th, 26th of July, our Prime Minister had gone there. And there were 8 agreements that were signed, which I'll just touch upon maybe after this slide or other slides. And that is something that is showing that we are getting back on an even keel as regards our relationship with Maldives. There is also a deepening United States engagement that is emerging because of the fact that China has set up a base in Djibouti, and the US now looks at Maldives as a point where they need to have some kind of an ability to intervene. So they have got into a new defense framework agreement with Mali, and there is also a presumption that if necessary, Maldives will turn to them in case of any kind of internal stress. I don't know how that would happen, but I mean that's always speculative. And then again, we have these issues about Mali, which is on one side a tourist haven, on the other side a climate vulnerability state, and the third side is a possibility of international terrorists seeking harbor in the distant islands. However, as it is a very importantly located country, it is very important for both India and China, and therefore it is harboring currently the stress points between India-China relationships and the India-American relationship. So let's see how this progresses. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, this is India's support. There was an intervention in 1988 when there was a coup, and at that point in time, there had been troops inducted there to quell the coup d'etat. And then there is a bilateral defense cooperation. The Dosti Maritime Exercise started in 1991, which is with the Coast Guard coordination. There is also a strategic presence and infrastructure support, which was earlier being managed by the Army through its defensive radar network, but is now handled by the civilians. And then there is a humanitarian disaster and relief operations, where India has very promptly come to the assistance of Maldives, starting with the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004 and going on to the 2021 COVID epidemic through vaccine Mehta. And then there are also regional security arrangements, including the Colombo Security Conclave. Can we go to the next? Now, we have already talked about this. I think the group captain also mentioned most of these points. So I think we'll skip this slide. We can just re-emphasize that Recently, the Prime Minister was there on a 2-day visit, and these are the developments that took place. One is debt relief. They agreed to reduce Maldives' annual repayment burden by 40%, which means actually they have extended the repayment. Then there is a line of credit that has been given for infrastructure, which is aligned with Maldives' developmental goals. That is about 4,850 crores. There is a UPI and RuPay integration that is proposed, and that is being worked out to be able to expand the digital connectivity and promote local currency trade. Then fisheries cooperation. There is a 3,300 housing units to be constructed by India, and then security assistance, where India has given them 72 vehicles and defense equipment. Climate and disaster partnership, which is basically on joint cooperation on resilience and green energy. And then there is the FTA and investment, which is under consideration. So I think that if it comes through, that is going to be beneficial. Can we go to the next? So these are the area of cooperation. These have been talked about. So I think we'll skip this slide. Can we go to the next? We have cooperation in defense and security, and as you've seen, there are a lot of these areas. Now, there are development assistance is there, and then, but these are challenges and differences. I just thought, this is something that we cannot ignore. One is that there was an India out sentiment, but while it strained relationships for a while, I think now we are back to on a relationship on a more even and a balanced keel. The Chinese economic leverage that is there. Even today, I was looking at the news reports. There is an expectation that the trade agreement that there was there with China, with Maldives, will get activated. The sovereign sensitivities, and here it is in terms of defense infrastructure and troop presence. These were reviewed as, and they were being viewed as interference. Now that has, I think, been resolved to a very substantial extent. So I don't think this is now an issue, but these were challenges and these have been resolved. So I think that is a very positive thing, that even when there are challenges in the relationship, they are getting resolved. And then there are delayed project execution for which I think there has to be some steps that have to be taken by the Indian parties that are involved in this. Can we go to the next? So that was basically it. I think frequent changes, political changes in Maldives have also thrown the relationship from one side to the other. We have swung from very, very strong and friendly relations to sometimes relationships that have been bordering on acrimonious and then come back. So I think that is also a sign of a relationship that is very strong, that you are able to swing back and forth. So with that, I think, as was being mentioned by Mr. Mazumder earlier, we've been friends through the ages, and I think the future also is bright for Maldives and for India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pant. Very detailed, elaborate presentation you have given. I'm sure our viewers have got benefited by it immensely. And unfortunately, at the very critical time, Mr. Majumdar's internet connection appears to be
Okay.
not
Shaky.
shaky. So, so we will wait for him to join, and till that time, we will have some discussion, chit chat on this topic.
I think he's there. He's come back.
I'm back.
Yeah, he's there, but can he come on, Mr. Majumdar? Can he come on?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Buffering. His connections are buffering.
Okay.
Okay, so tell me, Mr. Pant,
Yes.
with your experience with the Maldives and the people over there. Uh, what brought about this anti-India sentiments? Because I don't think India's policy has been coercive or exploitative, or uh, we did not. I suppose uh, what I know about Indian foreign policy, that we have done anything harm to Maldives or annoyed the Maldivian government in the past on any issue. So how this suddenly anti-India feeling has come over there? What in
I
your
Okay.
assessment? What is
All
that
right.
will lead
Thanks. I
to?
think that's a very important question because there have been very wild swings from one extreme to the other. So when we had 30 years of Mr. Mamoon Qayyum, those were periods of great friendship, and there were very positive, close relationships with India. But
I know
subsequently,
Stark
after
days
that,
there were, yeah.
yeah, but after that, again, there was a swing to the other extreme when Mr. Nasheed was there. And then at that time, China was coming up with its BRI. So China
Yeah.
wanted to get Maldives on board because of the maritime Silk Route, which was basically the
Yes.
sea influence that they wanted to have.
Yeah.
And then, as
So
we
is it
discussed,
that
yeah,
before
please.
China factor played in, do you think there was any other reason for this kind of feelings? Mr. Majumdar, thanks for joining back, because your Wi-Fi suddenly started giving trouble at the very critical juncture. So the one question I have posed to Mr. Pant, and that is regarding what, with your personal knowledge, you are there for the last 4 years interacting with the people in Maldives. Can you tell us what exactly, in your assessment, has caused this anti-India feeling to come in the Maldives society? Because in my assessment, what I shared just now with Mr. Pant, you were not there, that in the past I don't see any major Indian foreign policy that was harmful to the people of Maldives, or that can cause them any type of apprehension or fear or annoyance. So, how this people got this anti-India feeling? What is your assessment?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. And good evening to all the ladies and gentlemen who are listening. Coming back to your question, Group Captain, is that it's all about politics for the matter, because if you are on one hand a government which is pro-India, the opposition has to be something different, and it looks for an alternative. So naturally, the alternative was China, and that is my understanding that they tried to capitalize on that kind of plank, because both the parties, the opposition and the government, are pro-India. Then what are they fighting for? So maybe that's the reason. But yeah, agreed. Some and most of the not only in Maldives, in other neighboring countries which India has, there is always a attitude of big brother kind of scenario where people take a plank on it, whether it is Nepal, whether it is Bangladesh, or even in Sri Lanka. The India being, because of its size and enormity, is a scare. So naturally, in my opinion, and I don't have any data to support that, but in my opinion, that could have been a driving point of this kind of thought process. Apart from that, I do not see anything which could have triggered this kind of sentiment, because last 4 years as I am here, I go around, I go walk through the streets, I go to the shopping, and I go to my office and other social people functions, I don't find anything very derogatory or dismissive of India. People have a very soft feeling for India in all spectre, whatever I have been able to meet and talk through. Uh, if you talk of education, people would like to go to India for education. If you talk of medical facilities, then also it is India. So these are the things. Say for example, most of the Maldivians, they land up either in Trivandrum or Kochi for medical, and Chennai and Bangalore for education. So it is very much there. Though there is a preference for Malaysia and other countries as well, but at the end of the day, India being so close and supportive, so that has always a soft corner for India. So I wouldn't say that it is inherent or somehow it is there in the blood or something. But yes, we cannot deny that there is a feeling to like that. But mostly it is not on the aggressive part of it. Because I came into Maldives to 22, which was the previous regime. Then I have seen the whole process of electioneering, speeches, and marches, and finally the change of the government and the new government. It was there, but it was never very aggressive or aggressive to a person like me. So I have never faced any kind of discrimination or a bad behavior or something of that sort. Uh, People have been very nice and gentle to talking to me and mixing up with me. So that is, if I have been able to answer your question, Group Captain.
Yeah, yeah, you did answer the question, but my queries are more now.
Okay, please.
Uh, but one thing I keep on wondering, we are living in a age of in a digital age, and social media is playing a very important role in our perception.
Yes.
So, since you have been there during the election, I have a personal feeling that somehow in the social media, whosoever was controlling and whosoever was dominating the narrative, in social media, some anti-India campaign was very viciously followed. So, what do you have access to the social media of the Maldives, and what kind of things that they discuss, and do they still have that kind of anti-India issues and
Um,
feelings?
yes, I do have access to X and Facebook, definitely. And it is a free internet. There is no restriction here, like any other, some of the other countries where you have restrictions. So here it is free. Anybody can access any website. And there was a time when it was very, it was very much on the peak. But nowadays it is not there. I don't see anything very venomous against India as of now. Recently, nothing has come. But yes, not only in the social media, there was during the election time, even the TV was also very much biased against India at that point in time. But now I think things have changed. As Mr. Pant has pointed it out, the normalization of relationship has taken place, and it has been a wonderful change to be in. So yes, it was, but during the election and immediately after the election, but not after some time. No, it petered away.
So we can safely conclude that people to people there is no major differences, antipathy, anti feeling either in India or Maldives. It's only a political posturing for political gains that political parties from time to time exploit such issues for electoral gains, and not there are no real issues are not there. Uh, so if that is the case, then I think we can have a we are looking for a very positive future. Ups and downs will keep on coming.
Yes, I would
Uh,
agree with that.
yeah.
I would agree with that because, given to my personal experience, I never had any kind of bad thing to deal with.
That
So,
speaks a lot. Yeah.
yeah, people have been nice, and whether at the workplace, whether at the gyms, whether at the road or shop, nowhere I have faced anything anywhere at any point in time. During the election also, during the campaigning also, and after, when there was a very much high-pitched back and forth was going on. But still, even then, on the ground level, nobody has said anything to me or has expressed any kind of feeling which would hurt me.
Okay. And with your exposure to the financial sector of Maldives, can you also tell us something about the financial health of the Maldives? At one point of time, it was in a dire state. Uh, this is one of the most debt-ridden country. So how is it doing now, and how is the balance of payment situation and all?
Yeah, it is
Do you have
still not
any
out of
knowledge
the
of that?
yeah, it is still not out of the woods, I would say. There is a need and demand for dollars, but it is managing. It is managing somehow, though it would like to do much better than what it is doing now, which is aspirational. But all said and done, the economy is very small, and the challenges are huge. Though the population is around 5.6 lakhs to maximum 6 lakhs, I would say, or quarter to 6. We don't have land here. And the challenge is actually, it's ironic as I see it. The beauty of Maldives is actually the challenge of Maldives. Because it is small islands where you don't have much of land. 60% of the Maldivian population live in Male, which
Okay.
is very congested. And though they have tried to build up an artificial island, Hulumale, and moved lot of population there, lot of offices there, but it's still not enough. The other atolls, though they can have different kind of offices or industries, but the main issue is that the connectivity between all the atolls and islands is either through seaplane or the airports or speedboats or even the ferries, basically, which is not very cheap or conducive
Okay.
to fast-moving scenarios. And
So
the other thing which is there, which is a challenge, is this population, which is 5.6 lakhs, as I said. There is an issue with if even if you are putting an industry in some of the atolls outside Male and the Greater Male, the main issue is that you don't have the raw material, you don't have the skill gap is there, and you don't have the market. So all three are challenged. So while we say that it is a small economy, but the requirement of it to connect is not cheap. When you're connecting 2 or 3 islands, which is the project which India has done and China has built up a bridge, people are using it, but it is not cheap. It's quite expensive because it has got its own cost, which does not see how small or how big you are, or what is your condition of your economy. So it has got its own brutal, facts to be dealt with. So these are the challenges which the country still has, apart from the challenges which Mr. Pant has already mentioned from the environment, the climate, and of course the tussle and the triangle, I would say, between China, India, and Maldives. So this exists, and somehow India should find out a solution, as it has been, as you said, before the last 5 to 10 years, we had a very great relationship going on, and maybe we can come back to that if we can have some thoughts on that.
So, Mr. Pant has pointed out that US is now taking interest in these islands. Do you see any activity on ground
Yes.
of any American activities, American people coming, tourists coming, or maybe officials coming frequently now in Malay? Have you
Yeah,
noticed that?
tourists are very much there. It is the lifeline. Tourism is the lifeline of Maldives. But I don't see much of American going around in the capital also on the streets, or there is something in the news that is coming up. Though, yeah, if you look at the net, you find that yes, you have American investment also coming up, and maybe in the near future we will all be in a position to see what exactly, or maybe it is coming up through the IMF or World Bank. I'm not too sure how, but I don't see very much very big activity on the ground as of now.
So if that happens, the three giants competing on a tiny island will be a very, very interesting spectacle to
It
watch. Mr. Pant, will you like to
yeah.
add something? Anything? So we are reaching at the end of our talk. It is 56 minutes. I see. So 4 minutes more left. Will you like to wind up anything? Wrap up.
No, all I'd like to say is that Maldives is evolving, and there are aspirations that they have, and those aspirations are coming up, and they need not always follow what India thinks is good for them or what China thinks is good for them. They will have independent aspirations, and we have to respect that. So we have to go along with that, and we have to see what best we can do given our huge historical and cultural links that we have with them. The fact that they are, if you look at it just from the side of the Indian island chain of Minicoy and Laccadive, then it's just across the channel. So it's a very close neighborhood that they are in. And as Mr. Majumdar said, for all their basic requirements, the first port of call is India. They will come here for their shopping, they will come here for their purchases. They go to Sri Lanka also, but I think India is where I've seen more of them. So I think India has a positive contribution to make, and also a lot of goodwill that is there, which it can capitalize on, capture, and enhance.
Mr. Biswajit, Mr. Majumdar, you would like to wrap up? During our discussion, you had mentioned about Bollywood and the soft power of India,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it was very beautiful.
Yes.
You had mentioned. Can you
Yes.
wrap up your talk with that on that note?
Yes, sure, sir. What, and in that case, the soft power of India, which not many people actually sitting in India realize it, is huge. And when I say huge, it is really huge as compared to any other influence of any other country in this area. One, the Bollywood songs they play, and in almost every wedding, every function, and anything
Household.
to do with household karaoke. Indian serials are watched, Indian movies are watched. And the language proximity is there. People understand the Hindi or Tamil or even Malayalam to a large extent, rather than people understanding Chinese. There are hardly any person who actually understand a word of Chinese. So we have a definite big advantage over there as far as the soft power is concerned. Because as I mentioned previously, if it has medical, they go to Kochi and Trivandrum. It is education, they go to Chennai, Bangalore. So shopping, Bangalore. Yes, they also go to Sri Lanka, but the preference is always India. Preference is always India when you compare to Sri Lanka. So these are the things which are not seen or touched is because it's intangible, but it is very strong and can lead
Very right.
and influence a lot of decision making if we can work out the soft power of India in a big way.
That's a great point, Mr. Majumdar, and I am sure Indian government and Indian policymakers have taken note of that. And we have very strong ethnic cultural affinity with this island. The people, as you have brought out, will like to identify more with Indian subcontinent, Sri Lanka, rather than distant Europeans or the Chinese, because the household India lives in the household of the Maldives. And that's a great point. And thank you very much, Mr. Pant.
Thank you.
Viewers, Mr. Pant has got extensive experience in all our neighborhood countries, and I have requested him one by one to take up all these countries and come up on this platform and share his experiences of dealing with these. And you have seen how deep he has got insight not only on the banking and financial matters, but on strategic matters and security matters also. He has got a very good grip. His PPT was his presentation was very impressive. I being from the defense background and geopolitical, I have some knowledge on that. I must say that Mr. Pant, you have given a very good
Thank you very much.
bad situation, sir. And thank you. And we would like to have you again with a new country.
It'll be a privilege. Thank you. Thank you very
And
much.
thank you very much, all our audience. And thank you, Mr. Our technical support that is coming from the CLAWS. Thank you, DG CLAWS, for giving us this platform. And we would like to continue in future. Thank you, Mr. Majumdar, very much for joining from Mali, and we really appreciate it. And if there is anything pertaining to Mali, we will definitely remember you. And
thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and it's all my privilege to be associated with a group like yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So this is with this we will call off our podcast today, and hope to meet you again. If you like us, please do join us in our next week podcast. Thank you, viewers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.